bling light, my guns in the air, got my eyes on the target. There's enemy everywhere.
But Amelia's Jewel's opened up now, inside the 100 metres, and Amelia's Jewel pins the ears back for a big win in the Go Waters Stakes.
Gather up my courage, singing, come on, come on, come on, come on, yeah, yeah. Hey, let's go, let's go, let's go. Hey,
And Lady Shenandoah races up on the outside of Lady of Camelot, who's showing plenty of fight. Lady Shenandoah, Lady of Camelot fighting hard. Lady Shenandoah pushed right out and wins the surround.
stop my trembling, I gotta do it right.
Fangirl and Via Sistina. This is a great finish coming up. Via Sistina's knuckling down. So's Fangirl. Via Sistina, Fangirl, Via Sistina. Great win.
I feel my heart thumping. The singer, come on, come on, come on, come on, yeah, yeah. Hey, let's go, let's go, let's go. Hey, let's go, let's go.
And now on PG Podcast Network, it's time for the year-round carnival with Vince Accardi and your host, Racetrack Ralphy.
She's the one, she's the one, she's the one. That's what punters were saying in the big races on Saturday at Randwick as the Jmac show just rolled on. Probably weren't as easy victories as we thought with the two Group 1s, but Amelia's Jewel was dominant out the front in a barrier trial, and then Lady Shenandoah all up via Sistina. Vince Accardi from Daily Sectionals is going to tell us what happened on the clock. Good morning, Vince.
Hey, good morning, Ralphy. Unbelievable, eh? Unbelievable. Fantastic racing.
Absolutely. So, you can't beat self-interest. You're going to tell me you couldn't get it set out at any of them.
Just forget about it.
Just a watch day for Vince.
Well, Amelia's Jewel, I actually did get set, Ralphie.
Oh, you did? Oh, well done.
Yeah, but
Good.
that's about the luck of the Irish, if you want to call it, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I'll tell you what. So let's do those races in order. Even though that one was the group 2, the Guy Walter, Amelia's Jewel on Friday. You just kept scratching your head, saying, I'm not sure how she gets beaten. What we did say was if she did what she did first up last prep, when second in an electric race to Royal Patronage, she can't be beaten. It'd be fair to say it wasn't an electric race. What did she do on the clock, and what's to come?
Yeah, well, I guess the first part is this is the difference in being a master rider. Like, here we are, we're going 14 lengths below benchmark. So if you're last, it actually would have been hard to win.
Yes, as dominant as she was, if she did the usual of let's flop out, good luck.
Yeah, because, I mean, her kick down of plus 11.1, I mean, that's about as fast as you can go. And you can see there was a Lentia who's kicked a length and a half faster. Forget about it. When you're giving it a 4-length head start, you still might have the biggest close, but you ain't going to get victory. So that was probably the power of the ride. And of course, you got to get punished with the tax of the rider, but that you wouldn't really want it any other way. This is how you want top riders to be. They have to understand and anticipate the reaction of the pace. And if you know you're crawling, where else do you want to be? I mean, you could see the intention was go forward. I always thought the horse was going to go forward. A little bit surprised that it was leading, but when I looked at the numbers, 13.9 below benchmark, I go, genius. The mid-race, yeah.
No, the mid-race, Vince.
Oh, the mid-race, 8.8. He just said, I don't have to go too hard. He must have been thinking, I'm going to make this a 400-metre sprint. And this is what he did. He did exactly that. I mean, the plus 11.1, that's as good as she got. I just hope, like if Jmac's not riding in the future or whatever, that they don't just start believing that this is the only way you can ride a horse. Is that you got to be up front because we might see different outcomes.
It's funny. I thought of Wayne Hawkes, who's had a bit of controversy with Jmac over the last week. He had a go at his ride in the Romantic Warrior, but he did have a saying of John Hawkes, the genius. That is, he always tells his jockeys, ride the horse, not the track. In other words, do what's best for the horse, and that's what Jmac's done on Amelia's Jewel here.
Yeah, and all the evidence is there. It was stunning and probably made a lot of people happy, not just for the ones that I know that would have launched into the tight price for the win, but the reality is just to see, or to confirmed that this horse does have ability. We know it has ability. Now, the final output, I guess, is the big thing. We've ended up with a plus 2.1. It's probably as aggressive as it could be scored, Ralphie. So if we look at it from that angle, it's like an in-between run compared to last prep first up. But the beauty is we've only got upside from here. And could we get to those heydays, Ralphie? The plus 5.8s and all that? Who knows? I mean, it's a good start.
Actually, it's funny because that plus 5.8 when she beat a horse at the time was sort of not really known, called Pride of Jenny. That night was a leaders track at Moonee Valley, and again another master rider in Damien Lane said, "I'm not going to go back. We're going to put you on speed." And it tagged Pride of Jenny that night. So it's the old Mark Lambourne line: no speed, no talent. And if you got talent, you can be ridden differently.
Yes, and we now have discovered, and what even more so as we work through some of the races, that it could be that if you're going to race against the very best this campaign, you may have to have figures that are plus 5 or better.
And just for fun, because last prep at first up run that I mentioned to Royal Patronage, was it I think it was a track record actually. 1:20.4 was the official time posted. What was the difference in splits of the first 800 metres and the first two sections compared to? And back then she was ridden third or fourth line compared to leading on Saturday. It just shows you that every race is different, but you got to look at what actually done. So can you give our people some insight into the difference in speed from that race to this race?
Absolutely. Well, that particular day, Ralphie, that you referenced to, it was going 1.5 lengths below benchmark, 2 seconds quicker, or
12 lengths.
12 and a half lengths slower. And we know that that's a barrier trial, right? When you look at a variation, an absolute barrier trial. And then in the middle, and this is probably where the most punishing part comes in, you're travelling fast, minus 1.5 lengths. Your mid-race squeeze is 8.7, and how far above benchmark are you on the second split time is 7.1. So the mid-race move on the weekend was almost identical, like 8.8. But it was 5.1 lengths below on the split time, 2.5 seconds slower, Ralphie. So the squeeze was nothing. It was just like a jog. And that's also a pressure point and how much it can take out of you as a racehorse. And then we obviously get to the last 400 and we have a switching in dynamics. But when I say switching in dynamics, that day, Amelia's Jewel still managed to run 4.2 above. And of course, we see here we've gone 11.1. It doesn't make up all the difference though, Ralphie, in terms of the vacuum.
Yep.
Even though it's 7 lengths more. But if we look at the first and the second section, such a contrast. And obviously the net sum figure doesn't get you anywhere near there. But in terms of the health and the happiness for the horse, first of all, confidence, victory. Number 2, it can only really go upwards. Even if you're in great peak condition, this just probably propels you further. And you're going to need to.
Yeah. The monsters are coming.
Yeah, they're coming. The monsters are coming.
So race to race, and it's just a beautiful apples to apples here, because then the first of the group ones, the surround, Lady Shenandoah beats Lady of Camelot. The two ladies fought it out at the very tight price with the Jmac tax of Lady Shenandoah. But how's this? Amelia's Jewel led race 6. In race 7 at the 800 metre mark, it would have been 17 lengths off of the lead. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And what would have happened is, let's say if that Amelia's was in that race, it would have had to run a little bit like what it did first up last campaign. Probably had to travel a length and a half below benchmark, maybe 2 lengths below benchmark, and then have to deal with very, very tough mid and late closes. And as you can see from the numbers, Amelia's Jewels ended up with a plus 2.1. Lady Shenandoah plus 3.9, and I'm going to put it on the table. That's as low as I could score it.
Raw time?
Well, look at the raws, right? Just purely off the benchmarking, first and foremost. 9.9 above Lady Shenandoah versus minus 7.8. A little bit unfair, right? But yeah, the massive difference, colossal.
So it's funny. I was watching the Sky Racing boys yesterday, and they chat about the fillies, as we switch to this race, that, the usual question comes up about running in a Doncaster, and Chris Waller goes, "Oh, I've got to give it a real good thought because, it's not how we do things here." In other words, and the fillies have traditionally been busted open in the Doncaster, but 3.9 and 3.5 of these two fillies, that's an outstanding time, and it tells you they're actually knocking on the door of what can win a Doncaster. Whether they do or not's another question. But that's real serious performances, these two.
It is, Ralphy, and probably puts us in. When's the Doncaster?
I think it's 4 weeks.
Oh, that's okay. That's great because fillies can really feel the effects of big runs like this because they were. I'm not going to call it gut buster, but we're right on that borderline. Like we're right there. It was high pressure from start to finish.
So two things here. Firstly, Lady Shenandoah, she'd been putting her races away, hadn't been putting a lot on the clock, but that was, it was circumstantial. She didn't need to. So on Saturday, she needed to. She needed to dig deep. Jmac afterwards saw the interview. He had a big smile and said, they gave us a fight, Lady of Camelot. And this shows you're always going to be a bit wary of the easy winner, sort of saying, well, you haven't done much yet because you don't know how much they can give. On Saturday, we saw.
Yeah. When you're tested, you get to find out exactly what you do have, courage-wise, capability-wise, because you've got to go to that level and match the pressure of the race. And it did that. And Lady of Camelot, there's two ways of look. See, this is the two coins. Lady of Camelot, when you look at its profile and its performance, I just thought it was unbelievable, its performance as well. 1,400 metres, little question marks about how high could you really raise the bar, compared to your historic profile. Because if you look at the historic profile of this horse, it's somewhere in that 1.6, 1.7 range, possibly. This is what I love about the race matrix, Ralphy. The race matrix indicate you could probably extend the elastic band maybe as far as somewhere close to 3, but not lower than about 2.2. So I am happy that when I looked at it from that prism, Lady of Camelot's coming with a 3.5. So that's huge. That's outstripping all its previous performances. It's had plenty of racing in terms of hard fit, and it looked like it just evolved, Ralphie. We've seen these female horses, how they can sometimes keep making steps, and here we are, where horse has made a really gallant step and taken itself to another level.
Tell you what, in the home straight, when because we're trying to think of either ors, that's the caper on a Friday, and saying, well, okay, maybe the value could be if Lady of Camelot overextends early and then compounds, that then maybe there could be some value for multis.
Yep.
And then there's a war up the straight, and I just think Waterhouse Bot, you guys are geniuses because it was the reverse. She was able to cope, she thrived with the blinkers off, and it was a proper race, and both those fillies are just outstanding.
Yeah, and the few little things that you've got to take away when you see the margin was tight, but when we look at the breakdown and say, okay, Lady Shenandoah was second up, how much did the horse have to improve in terms of energy? You could see previous start 3.8 below. Here it's gone plus 1.4. So we've almost had to go a second quicker through an extra 200 metres to get to the 800. So that was the first real big signal about where you have to be. And I'm not saying the horse wasn't obviously ready for that, but that will take a lot out of you. And then you have to look at the split time in the second section. First up, it was plus 2.4. Here it was plus 3.4, another length. And probably the greatest part is usually when we do this comparison, Ralphie, we always have a negative last 400 when comparing the two. But here we've had another elevation up, 5.1 above versus 4.7. So in every section and going an extra 200 metres, this horse rose. And I did start, just for a moment, I started thinking, oh my goodness, are you good enough to maybe challenge something like the Great Autumn that we've got here? Is it possible?
Exciting time. So, of those that got beaten, now they were well beaten, but I ask you this because sometimes a really fast 1400 can show if a horse has got genuine Oaks potential. So, when you look at Lazura, Manal, who switched back on, and Declici Boulevard, are they the types that can relax. They were tested at the mile last prep. Oh, sorry, Minot wasn't, but as far as getting away from this and being able to just relax and evolve, because you've got a race like the Storm Queen over 2,000 coming up in a couple runs from here.
Well, it's possible, Ralphie. I mean, they all obviously know they've been in a race because it was intense.
Yeah,
there's no question about it. It was intense pressure. I love it, and ultimately it can only help horses. But it just all comes back down to what will the recovery process be? What's your next critical run going to look like? Yes, it is possible what you said, Ralphie. This could happen. I mean, overall, you've got to remember, like, Manal still come in 0.1 below benchmark. The other one, the Boulevard, what's it called?
Declici.
Yeah, Declici, 0.3 below. So they're still coming below benchmark.
Well, I'm just saying, compare that to like Treasure of the Moment in Melbourne. It's pretty similar. So
yep, true. Yep.
So that's probably the type that's the testing material. Anyway, we'll break that down for Sizzlers. For race 8, the champ was back via Sistina, and Fangirl did what Fangirl does, gave it a real race. And unlike last start where Lindemann got a real soft lead and nearly picked off both of them, this was not a soft tempo race despite the small field, Vince.
Yeah, well, obviously there was a clear strategy here, and Golden Path wanted to be the owner of the front, and there it is, 0.3 above. I personally thought maybe it was going to be more like Lindemann leading. Now, Lindemann was only travelling 1.3 below, but this contest, that changed the nature of the race because of the fact that Golden Path went up the front and put a little bit of heat on. Now, it's not massive, but the heat's on in comparison to where we could have quite easily been in a -5 or worse in terms of first section if no one was going to challenge Lindemann. So the race was on, and it wasn't brutal through the first section for Via Sistina or Fangirl, but it was going to get tough from there on in, and boy, was it tough, Ralphie. I mean, wow. Like, the move in the mid was massive. And this track, last 400, to me it looked like there's just a little bit of wind assistance. And now I know the winds weren't high, but it did come across like there was a little bit of that coming into play. Plus, there's no question we're beyond a good 3. We were in the F2 range in the home straight, and this allowed for electric closes.
Well, we certainly got that with these two quality mares. My takeaway from this was that's about Fangirl's limit under this type of race shape. She has had a mid-5s on a fast, blistering tempo, sort of, what was the race? The Golden Eagle. But Via Sistina, tell us about the leap first up to second up and what's still to come.
Yeah, well, isn't it funny about the reversal about, the power of positioning running? It's so critical, isn't it, Ralphie? Like, where you're positioned dictates so much about what's going to happen in the end. But Via Sistina has had to come off a 14.8 length below benchmark run, and we just talked about the previous race and the transition, and here we've got to end up with a -4.2. So it was pretty hectic.
So 10 lengths faster race to race.
Yep, race to race. In the mid, though, Via Sistina first up went 5.2 above. We've pretty much matched it, but we've matched it going 10 lengths faster, Ralphie, right? I mean, that's massive. And can you believe it? Of course there's going to be, and this is the typical thing that happens, there'll be some deterioration at the end, but the deterioration was only 1 length, Ralphie. 1 length. We're talking about 8.8 first up, last 400 versus 7.8, and we've gone 10 lengths faster. Unbelievable.
4.2 overall. That's starting to get to a serious territory, isn't it?
Yeah, I was really excited with that, Ralphie, because you've got this Moonee Valley run, which is like super elite. And then when you look at all the other performances, like if the Moonee Valley run didn't exist, and this is just a hyperbole because it really did happen, right? If you just pull that out of its profile and say, okay, well, maybe you're a mid-4s, high-4s horse, right? Can you repeat that first? Well, there it was. The franking of the repeat. Of course, if you're talking from a business point of view, it's the old story. These sort of horses will start short all the time now, but the reality is you probably just keep making money. For those that like betting for the win right only, they'll just keep making money, and the evidence was on there. Here we are, we've come in and performed in a huge manner, plus 4.2, testing the 4.7 range. Just sit back here and I'll look at it, and I scored it hard. It could have probably, if I was, because I had to score it hard, Ralphie, because there has to be deductions over that last 250 metres about how fast that track was, right?
Yeah.
See, if I didn't do that, we'd probably end up with a 5.5, more like probably where it would have sat. But, I was just going through some history in that, and I just felt that this was genuinely 1-2 lengths faster than what we normally see, and we were F2 ground, so just pulled it back a little bit without going crazy, but it's there. Fangirl was probably the real franking, the 3.8, 100% justified, and probably set the tone about that minimum bar. We are where we need to be. We're in that range and still climbing, and Fangirls is absolutely trending, Ralphie. It is still trending upwards. Could we see the 5.6? I reckon we're not far from that now. We're trending to that number.
So there's every chance these two will split. Fangirl will stay at the 1500 range, or the mile range rather, at the George Ryder, and then Via Sistina goes to the Randwick over 2000 on the same day, Golden Slipper Day, and then 2 weeks time she goes to the Queen Elizabeth. So there's every chance these two will split, and they're going to take a power of beating on a fair track.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, well, the reverse happens here when we talk about the 2-year-olds, races 4 and 5, and there's a bit of sadness what happens on the clock, but what really strikes me, Vince, and you've touched on this about how fast the home straight was, well, there must have been some kind of wind assistance, because there's just no tempo in either race. I know that's some riders' intent, but usually with 2-year-olds, they run. And if they're not running fast, it gives you further clarity that in the back straight, obviously, it was headwind and tailwind in the straight. But what did we learn from Rivellino winning the Colts and Within the Law winning the fillies?
Well, we had the first insight was the tail of the two different race shapes. Yep. One 7.7 lengths below benchmark lead speed. The other one we're going to, exactly like what you said, Ralph, more like what's expected. Here we are running 0.8 above and putting some real effort into the race, and that's probably the starting and the end point from that perspective. Well, Rivellino 11.6 lengths below benchmark, Ralphie. Even with some structure of wind, the reality is it's still genuinely artificially created by about 3 or 4 lengths at least if you look at the whole day. So that tempo should have been at least another 2, 3, maybe 4 lengths quicker, and it wasn't. Then the mid-race move for Rivellino, it was good. There was an 8.8 length squeeze, but it was still below benchmark between the 8 and the 4. I can't deny the last 400, though. It was just a whopper, plus 8.3. At least you know that this horse, under certain circumstances, can have just a giant sprint, which is a good thing. Not a good thing. Is this going to go to a slipper?
Well, that's right. This is the traditional lead-in, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, 3 weeks out, they won't have another run, these horses, and it's looking a bit sad on the clock.
Yeah, well, you're going to probably look to freshen up, and the horse is giving... I know the horse won, but the horse gives the sign longer better too.
Right. And the same with the fillies. They've been up for a while, a horse like Within the Law. So they both won those English bonus races. They attacked the line, but you'd have to think that this Saturday we're going to see the Golden Slipper with Woden and North England and a couple of those others stepping out. So we'll learn more there. I just want to I should backtrack. Sorry to the Group 1, the Very Elegant, because Daniel's asked about the what did we see from a future perspective, distance wise, and it seems pretty real. Faulkner Park and Arapahoe, they look right on track.
Which race was that, Ralph?
So, sorry, back to Via Sistina's race. So, Faulkner Parks ran 4th at 40s. Arapahoe, our man's a part owner of it. Always underrated, this horse, even when he wins Group 1s. And I did note post-race, Ashley Morgan said, I know he's an older horse. He's going as well as ever. So, what did you make of the return of Faulkner Park in the second up run of Arapahoe?
Well, I feel that like if you're all the owners of those horses, you'd be pretty pumped because they were big performances. I mean, Faulkner Park, firstly, comes in with a plus 2.7, clearly in the top 10 for the day. You are working when you're going 5 lengths below benchmark and then have to make a massive move in the mid-race to go plus 5. Like, that's a high extension, Ralphie, under this sort of scenario. And then, beautiful 7.4 last 400. 100% the horse is going to feel that run. Arapaho, in many cases, was probably better, even though it finished behind it. And the reason why I say that is this. You're going 3 lengths faster through the first half of the race when compared to Faulkner Park. Your mid-race is virtually identical. We're talking only 3/4 of a length, which means that you have still put a higher overall exertion in, and you're entitled to drop off. And then I look at the last 400, 2.9 above Arapaho versus Faulkner Park, 4.3 above, about 1.3 variation. All got to do with how much more effort was used through the first half of the race. Not much between them, Ralphie. Not much between them, and they are in perfect condition.
I dare say they've both got a circle around the Tancred in 4 weeks' time, and Arapaho won that race 2 years ago. His last two 2400 runs have been the Tancred and the Zipping Classic at Caulfield last year, which he won. So he's obviously a beauty at that distance range, and they've got him absolutely spot on the Baker team.
Yeah, well, I should also comment. I mean, have they got Lindemann airborne or what?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, this runner is absolutely airborne. It's just sad that it's bumping into this, couple of elite horses, and there was one that was omitted, right? But 1.3 below, outfranking both Faulkner Park and Arapaho through the first section, plus 4.3, pretty much went as well as Arapaho and going faster. And then, all honours to the horse, plus 5.1 last 400. Gutsy, very gutsy.
After the race, Nash made a point of saying, I just want to get a fence on track, a leader. and Randwick, of course, played typical, and there's no knock because it's played how we expected. But, the rail, true, it's not leader advantage if you hug the fence. But Nash's point was, if you can get a track which is leader true, leader advantage, rails advantage, he's going to take a power of beating.
Well, all he's got to do is go there when the rail's out 6.
It doesn't often happen, but sometimes there's these tough buggers like Desert War types on pace at a Doncaster. He would give a big shout in a Doncaster, wouldn't he?
Who's in that race, Ralph? That's what
yeah, of course.
About. We are in a scenario this season, in this autumn season, we're in a scenario where maybe if you don't have the ability of at least running plus 4s or higher, you ain't going to get no medals. There'll be no podium finish because this is the way it's shaping up.
Yeah.
Like there's just some stunning performances that have been going on, and this is, I love it. If they keep hoses away, Ralphie, let the track be real, we get to see the best of everything.
So the next most interesting race, we'll finish with this with Randwick, is the last for mine, and that is there was a bit of an avalanche for Birdman. I've got a theory why, and that is Jmac had ridden 4 winners. There would have been a lot of money in the all-up Jmac sort of multis, right? So then I think that's part of moving the market, and that there was a pincer movement there. Birdman was smashed from $4 to $3. Kings Valley 280 out to $350, and post-race, it's 6 kilos. Well, what about post-race? Kings Valley's been airborne. It was having its 8th run for the prep, and Birdman was only second up.
Yeah, and see, when Kings Valley won, I don't reckon we've run any number. That was just, my initial thought. And put the numbers, and there it is, 0.6 below. And so the horse is still not breaking benchmark. And then you look at the setup of the race. We're going 5 lengths below benchmark. This is lead speed. Kings Valley, 9.1. Beautiful position to be in. Even in the mid-race, yes, there was a move, but it wasn't like massive. Kings Valley's had an 8.5 length mid-race squeeze. 0.6 below benchmark. It's good, but it's not like unbelievable. Okay, last 400, but this was the theme of the day, Ralphy, right? Last 400, nice and quick, 8.2 above. You probably look at it and say, well, that was exciting. Yeah, it was exciting from that perspective, but overall, we've ended up with a 0.6 below benchmark. Birdman, on the other hand, is, given it a length and a half head start, probably made some decent ground in the mid-race of 2 lengths. And then overall, last 400, the variation was 0.3. Visually, and now looking at the intel, Birdman's run out of condition, Ralphie. The horses run out of
That's the point
condition.
I was making.
Yeah,
The lazy way would be to say, 6 kilos difference.
No.
The reality is one's a rock hard fit, been racing well through the Melbourne summer, and the other one was second up at 1900.
Yeah. So I think all the people that back Birdman, if they didn't back it for a place as well, they would be getting recovery into future races.
Well, I always say I've got a feeling Chris Waller wasn't setting this horse for a benchmark 88, and I know in 2 weeks' time at Rosehill on Slipper Day, there's a 2400 Group 3, so
Right.
it will drop weight. Now, whether we factor in doesn't matter. Chris Waller factors it in.
Yes.
I reckon that's the circle, and then on to the Sydney Cup. So,
Well, it's going to be a beautiful come-on run, Ralphie.
yep,
There's always little challenges. What happens if it's super fast or whatever?
of
But
course.
it was important to get that run in, and Mr. Waller would have been very happy with a 10.5 length mid-race squeeze just to tighten it up.
No, that's his special for sure.
Yep.
All right, really appreciate you being a customer year-round Carnival. If you want the IVR report that Vince has been referring to with his data, you can get it via Sizzlers. So go to my website, racetrackralphy.com.au, including via the podcast previews this week. What a day at Melbourne. Newmarket Day and All-Star Miles Day. It's an absolute cracker for the public holiday. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy this. And we're going to preview it on Friday, do a deep dive into the main races. Saturday will be all business, and you get Vince's early and final edition of Race Speed Profiles if you'd like to get that. Again, via my website, racetrackralphy.com.au. If you're an existing daily sectionals customer, there is an audio-only top-up. Our Group 1 member bonus today, we're going to have a look at the Australian Guineas Day. You don't have to go through trials or anything. You had Group 1 racing in Sydney, Group 1 racing in Melbourne. So if you want to hear what our review of Melbourne, just become a Group 1 member, again, via the links there. In the meantime, thanks so much for listening to Year Round Carnival.